Pikachu! Hi, I'm Dr. Francis. I'm a world-famous wildlife nutritionist. You may not have heard of me, but your pigeon sure has. Today, I would love to talk about the debate of raw versus cooked food. Let's settle this once and for all. Coo, coo, I'm a pigeon. I've always said there are three things you cannot talk about on a first date: religion, politics, your pet's nutrition. It is so personal and it's so emotionally charged that it's really difficult to kind of just agree to disagree. Even if you agree or you're talking with someone who likes to feed fresh and who believes fresh feeding is best, there's still fighting between the people who feed raw, those who make their homemade or buy cooked or gently cooked diets. It's this political fighting everywhere and it needs to stop. So I'm here to settle this once and for all and make everyone hold hands. Go there and hold hands with your friends who are feeding different kinds of food for your pets. We all want the same thing and let's focus on that. In the last 5 years, there's been an uptake on research showing the good or bad sides of feeding fresh to your dog or cat. Luckily, there's a lot more positive results that are coming out in choice of fresh feeding for dogs and cats. So in the last 5 years, we have a lot more evidence to shout about and to tout about how amazing fresh food is for your dogs and cats. So while we can all agree on these things, let's look at specific projects, studies, what have you, that looked at raw versus cooked foods. So the first discussion point is always going to be raw has possible contamination risks like Salmonella, E. coli, all that fun stuff. Whereas if you cook the food, naturally these should be dead. Well, it's all a question of risk. Even if you're feeding kibble or canned food, there's still a risk that you will be giving your pet Salmonella. If you go on the USDA website and you look at the major pet food recalls, most of them are kibbles and it's because of Salmonella as well. So really, risk is absolutely everywhere. As long as your pet is healthy, as long as your pet is not immunocompromised, then there's nothing to worry about with trying them on raw. I fully agree that raw is not for everyone. Raw is not for every pet. Some pets just don't do well on raw, and that's completely fine. That's why you have gently cooked or cooked foods as an alternative. So you shouldn't see it as raw or gently cooked. You can actually feed that together as well. Maybe you want to give some parts of the diet raw and others you want to make them cooked. Or it also depends where you get your food from. I am a big fan of mixing different kinds of foods together to make an ideal diet for your pet. Every pet is different. You can't just say this diet A is the best for all the dogs and cats. It just doesn't work like that. They're just too different. Another common comment that we receive about fresh feeding is that they're afraid it's not balanced properly. Well, that could be true. You need to make sure that whatever home-cooked diet you're making or whatever commercial raw or fresh food diet that you're buying meets the nutrient standards that are either NRC, AAFCO, or FEDIAF. These are the world accepted minimum nutrient requirements. Now keep in mind, I just said minimum requirements. Does not mean optimal, but at least it gives you a safeguard that they have at least what your pet needs. If you're able to see the wording surpasses AFCO or surpasses FEDIAF, then you know that they're trying to be a little bit better than just meeting the minimum requirements. That is true for commercial pet food, that's true for processed or for fresh pet food. Very important for you to see that statement on the packaging. So let's go into labels here. What is the difference between raw food or cooked food or gently cooked? Well, raw is, as the name says, it's completely raw, which means the only processing it may have gone through is freezing, which is actually not really considered processing. So it's the most pure, unadulterated, unprocessed food that you can get, raw. Then we can go into gently cooked. This is when ingredients have been lightly processed because they've been cooked at between 70 and 80 degrees only for a limited amount of time. So normally the outside is fully cooked, bacteria is dead, most of them cannot survive past 70 degrees, but the middle is usually a little bit pink. So it's kind of half or 3/4 cooked, I would say. The last category is fully cooked. So this could be fried, it could be boiled, broiled, steamed. This goes up to 100 degrees or sometimes even 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It could be very, very, very warm. The trouble here is that there's no consistency between time. So if you use a gently cooked method, but you cook it for 5 hours, we're probably going to end up with something that is very similar to fully cooked. So that's where the industry is a little bit blurred. So it's good for you to question whatever brand you're using and ask them, what are your current cooking protocols? What temperature and how long? And then you can then really understand more if they are gently cooked or cooked. So for you fresh feeding people who fight with other fresh feeding people, the main argument used against cooking or cooked foods is that it's less digestible. The act of processing and cooking makes it less digestible. Well, luckily, there's been a lot of research in the last 80 years or so that gives us specific numbers. What is the digestibility of raw, gently cooked, and cooked foods for dogs and cats? Well, we have these numbers, we have the answers. So let's use commercial pet foods as the baseline, right? Because that's the most popular pet food in the world. So if you're looking at canned food or kibbles, these have been tested on at least 6 different scientific papers, probably more. The digestibility is between 73 to 88%. It's a huge range, right? Because every brand will have a different formulation, different ingredients, which means digestibility will be slightly different. So that is your baseline, 73 to 88%. So if we go down the list, next would be cooked foods. So these have been processed, right? Because they're fully cooked. The digestibility ranges between 85 to 90%. So there's a little bit of overlap between some of the very, very high quality kibbles and the foods that have been very, very well cooked. But overall, you have a little bit more digestibility and a smaller, shorter, tighter range of digestibilities in cooked fresh foods versus kibble. So there's already a huge difference between using fresh ingredients versus something that is ultra processed. Next category is gently cooked. So these are the ones that have been cooked at 70 to 80 degrees for a limited amount of time. The digestibility ranges from 90 to 94%. That is huge. So yes, there is a gap between cooked food and gently cooked food. And there's a huge gap between gently cooked and the ultra processed kibbles and canned foods. You want the highest number, right? You want to reach 100%, even though that's not possible. But you want to go as high as possible. So now we have some values for gently cooked, cooked, and kibbles. The next one, the last one, the one everyone wants to know, what is the digestibility of raw diets for our pets? And that number is 90 to 96% digestibility. That is huge. That is such a high number, and that also explains why pets on raw diets often have very small, compact, dry, scentless, odorless poops because they're absorbing all of the nutrients and there's very little for it to actually come out on the other end. So yes, there's a huge difference in the digestibility of fresh foods overall and kibble and canned food. But when you're looking only at the fresh food, actually it's not so different. Gently cooked and raw foods have very, very similar. They overlap for almost the entire digestibility range, except for 2% at the end for some of the more digestible raw foods as opposed to gently cooked. So there's not a huge difference between them, so stop fighting. Even if you look at cooked foods, the range is still there. Yeah, it's a little bit less digestible, but it's still very, very highly digestible as well. So if you want to feed your pets raw, great. If it turns out they don't like it, they can't get into it, they don't react to it well, gently cooked is an amazing second choice with only 2% less digestibility. So that's why at Pet Cubes, we have our entire raw range and we have our gently cooked range. Stop fighting. Whether you're feeding one or the other, or you feed both, your pets are getting amazing things for their long-term health and disease prevention. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this video and I hope you've made some new friends who don't feed the same food that you do to their pets. It's okay, hold hands and talk about how you love your pets instead. If you have any more questions about dog or cat nutrition, comment below. I'll be happy to give you a shout. And follow us on all of our socials, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.